Welcome to Howell Township's council meeting for Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020. The executive session is at 6:30 and the regular session is at 7:30.
I'll read the opening statement. Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this regular meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner: by the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on January 8th, 2020, by the emailing of a copy of said notice to the Asbury Park Press, Tri-Town News, and Star Ledger for information and publication on January 8th, 2020, by the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on January 8th, 2020. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 17:27. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, be advised that this facility is designed with emergency exits for your safety. Upon exiting the meeting room, they are to your left and to the right. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Television. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich. Ms. Richmond is absent this evening. Mr. Russo?
Here.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Here.
Mayor Berger?
Present. Is there any reason to go into executive today?
Yes, Mayor, we have an item to discuss under personnel issues.
May I have a motion to go?
Motion to go into executive session, please?
May I have a second?
Second.
I'll read the resolution. Whereas the governing body of the Township of Howell is authorized pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12 to exclude the public from that portion of this meeting for purposes of discussing specific matters as permitted by NJSA 10:4-12, and whereas the governing body of the Township of Howell intends to discuss certain matters which are deemed confidential pursuant to NJSA 10:4-12 in executive session, whereas at this time the governing body of the Township of Howell cannot determine the time when the discussion to be held in executive session will be made public, but will disclose the minutes of the executive session when the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Now therefore be it resolved by the governing body of the Township of Howell that this meeting shall be adjourned to an executive session and the public will be excluded in order that the governing body of the Township of Howell may discuss the items previously listed, and upon reconvening this public meeting, the presiding officer will announce, if possible, the time when and the circumstances under which the discussion conducted in executive session will be disclosed to the public. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich.
Present.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Mayor Berger?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Sorry we're a little late, but we had a lot of issues in the back, so we were quite passionate in our discussion, so I'm sorry. Welcome Tuesday, March 3rd, 2020, to our regular session at 7:45. I'd like to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then a moment of silence for our fallen heroes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I have a motion for the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes, Mayor.
May I-
I'll second.
Thank you.
Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes. Are there any reports from the township officials?
Yes, Mayor. First up, we have a brief presentation from the Census Bureau.
Thank you.
All right, so thank you guys. I know you guys have a busy schedule.
Could you just state your name for the record?
Yep, so my
Thank
name's
you.
Ryan Edwards. I work as a partnership specialist with the U.S. Census Bureau.
Thank you.
So I know you guys have a busy schedule, so I'm just going to run through 3 major topics with the census, that it's easy, safe, and important. So let's quickly go through here. So the census has taken place every 10 years since 1790. The importance of it that we try to hit, and we try to hit with the public, is your congressional representation. So in 2010, we actually lost a congressional seat in New Jersey. So in 2020, it's really important that we count every single person once, only once, and in the right place for you guys' congressional representation. The other important drive that we try to tell the public is the federal funding that's allocated through census count. So it's over $675 billion that gets allocated through census data. This is everything from infrastructure projects, from schools, hospitals, CDBG funding, local jurisdictions on funds. So it's really important that we count every single person living in this county. Other thing is the safetyness aspect of the census. What we really try to emphasize is the data protection. This is our #1 emphasis. So all data collected by the census is protected by what we call Title 13. Title 13 is what keeps all our census data in-house. Census data is only used for statistical purposes. Every single census employee, even the field enumerators that will go out this summer, is sworn in, and then you can see the penalties up here for disclosing any of that information. So the easiness aspect of it. So 2010 is the first year we're going to have it where you can do it completely online. So starting March 13th, every single household in the United States will receive an invitation to fill out the census. There'll be a little key code. They can go online. You can also fill it out by typing in your address online. You can also respond by phone. There'll be 11 languages sponsored by the phone program. And then if we don't hear back from you by mid-April, we'll also send a paper question out to you for you to fill out and mail back to us. If we don't hear back from you then, that's when we start sending our field employees out into the field. There's 59 other languages online that you can go and fill out. So we do have a local field office here in Toms River. That's that Wave 2 office. We have our main office in Trenton. So our big things here we try to push. So you'll start seeing our national media campaign start now. April 1st is what we consider Census Day. The only way we use that day is if you don't have a permanent residence, we'll count wherever you live on April 1st. So we do our homeless population count on April 1st. We also do, if you don't have a permanent residence, we'll count wherever you live on April 1st. Our report has to be on the President's desk by December 31st, and then you'll start seeing the impacts of census data starting by March of 2021. This is the redistricting and the reallocation of funds. So our recruiting, so we still are hiring here in Ocean County. Ocean County pays $20 an hour, so does...
We're in Monmouth.
So we have our enumeration positions. We also have still some office positions in our Toms River staff. So we're still hiring. You can go to 2020census.gov/jobs to see all our positions we're hiring for. It's one application. The only requirements is over 18 and a U.S. citizen is the only thing we require. Our partnership is what we asked for from you guys. So our idea is to get the word out to you guys, and you guys are the community leaders for you guys to emphasize to your jurisdiction of the importance of the census. Again, this is for congressional representation and the allocation of funds. We have an outreach material website for you guys, so we can supply all the materials. We can do social media posts for you guys. We just ask that you guys disseminate it amongst your population. Our data dissemination program, this is kind of what we get back to you guys. So all our data dissemination, you can go to census.gov/data. So there's presentations, there's PowerPoints on how to access our data. So part of our give back is for you guys to do local town funding, grant writers, nonprofits. They all use census data to come up with how they allocate their funds. They're looking up specific data for grant writing. This is what we try to get back. You know, we have a lot of private firms that kind of repackage our data and sell it back to you guys into the township. So our idea is to make sure that you guys know this is all public information for you guys to use. You guys can connect with us. We have all our social media pages here. And then our data dissemination program and our partnership program, if you're looking for more information on how to get involved in the census and our big push throughout the summer. Do you guys have any questions on the census? And go ahead.
I do. Are there any locations in Howell that people will be registering if they didn't get something by mail?
So every address will get a mailing sent to them. We did an operation over last summer called address canvassing. It was to make sure our master addresses were up to date. We also had a new, and I don't know if Howell was part of it, but we had a new construction program too for any new homes that were being built that year that we could update into our system for this year. So every address will, through every instances, they can, we have helplines and stuff like that that can actually call up and fill it out that way too if they are missed on the mailing itself.
And what about people who don't necessarily have a permanent address but live in a house in Lakewood 1 month, then Howell the next month?
So we'll count, that's where we use that
That's
April 1st
the
date.
April 1st date,
Yeah,
okay.
we'll use that there.
But where would they go, though, since they don't actually have an address?
Yeah, so it's up to the head of household, whoever is living in that household that time, to count the person, everyone that's living at that house and every time. So it's up to the head of household on April 1st. If you have someone living, let's say in a basement, or you just have someone on your couch for that month that doesn't have a permanent addresses, it's up to the head of household at that time to declare them on their census form.
Thank you. I think that's going to be a little helpful for people.
Yeah, so the big thing is we can count for overcounts on there. So if we have 2 people claim on there, we do have backup quality control checks that we can check for that. What we can't account for is undercounts. So if someone's missed, so it's really important that if you do have someone living at your home on April 1st and they don't have a permanent address, that you include them on your census data form. And again, that's part of our data protection, and that this is strictly for statistical purposes. We're not ICE, we're not IRS, we're not tax enforcement. There's no ramifications for you sharing this information. It's all protected.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Please. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Brian, is this already on our Facebook and our website and everything already, or something we need to add?
Not yet, however, our green team does receive points for their certification for participating, so I've been in contact with the green team.
Great.
There's various things that they're proposing to help bolster the efforts.
Great, good news, thank you.
Do you have part-time employment, or is it just full-time?
Yep, so our employment actually will run, you can work as little as 5 hours a week, up to 40 hours a week. You get to set your own schedule too, so if you're just looking to work, a day on the weekend or just some nights here to make some side income, we'll take full part-time employment too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
And this
thank
is
you.
where they would contact for any jobs?
The jobs is 2020census.gov/jobs here.
Thank
And
you.
it's one resume. It takes about 5 minutes to complete the resume to fill it out on there.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Mayor, I had 2 other quick items. Obviously, current events with regard to the coronavirus. Our OEM has been monitoring it. They're also coordinating with the Department of Health as well as county OEM just on any potential exposure. They've been doing an inventory for supplies should things take a turn for the worse locally. They're working on that. DPW has implemented a plan as well to start a daily sanitation of high-traffic areas and areas frequently touched, railings, doorknobs, elevator buttons, things like that.
Right. Just a question.
Sure.
We're in the process of putting up a notification. So when you click on the website, this notification immediately comes up, and it gives information on if you believe that you're ill, or if you have any of the symptoms, or if you have gone out of the country, et cetera, whatever the criteria are. And it pops up immediately, and then you can exit out. But there's also a website where people can go to if they believe that they have an issue. So maybe could we look to see if that would pop up when somebody goes into our website, that
Sure.
would pop up, you exit out, and then they can continue on. But at least it gives, more of an awareness, maybe?
Sure.
Thanks.
And one other item, with regard to recycling, we've been having some issues we're trying to work through with our vendor. As recycling has gotten extremely expensive, things are getting tightened up. Our contract with the vendor calls for 32-gallon totes, so they are going to start strictly enforcing that. So we're going to post that for our residents to make sure that they're aware of that. Their recycling containers should be 32 gallons or less. Otherwise, it's going to come a point in time they're not going to pick it up.
Do they provide them?
Please, I'm sorry.
With the 32-gallon totes, I've seen it on other towns where it becomes a social media nightmare. So is there a specific color? Is it blue? Because other towns, they accept green pails, different color totes.
I will review our contract
Yeah.
and make sure we post exactly what's required.
Another town posted a green tote, and everyone went up in arms because they had blue and...
Understood.
Yeah.
I'll make sure we scrutinize the contract and post exactly what's required.
So,
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Couple things, I had a couple of questions. Actually, a comment. So, the Green Team has been visited by a realtor. He's trying to promote the waste transfer station. Who allows that to happen if he was not invited in? Or if he was asked by someone else to go? We're not sure, but the Green Team did not invite him.
Your meetings are open public meetings, so
Well, I mean,
anybody
but-
can attend, but
But could we ask him that not to have, discuss the transfer station? I mean, I don't know. I mean, what is, he's there to try and sell the team on moving forward with the project. I mean, is that, he's a realtor. I mean, he's coming in not as a private citizen, he's coming in as a realtor. I think it's.
I'll ask legal to comment
Yeah,
on that.
that's fine.
Mayor, I will say that I was at that meeting, and the Green Team asked him questions that I felt that he wasn't happy to answer, so they were on it very hard, so.
Mayor, can I add? I heard about that too, and, you know, no one in this town wants to dump.
Right.
We're not a trashing ground for the county. We had an issue a couple weeks ago where we all signed on a letter together. They were against the transfer station. Part of that letter requested that we have the right to do our own traffic study. Well, if we're being bombarded at our meetings with someone trying to spin that this is positive for our town, which I believe it is not, I would like this council to move forward with its own traffic study.
Absolutely.
So,
Joe, I'm unfamiliar with is it the Green Team? I wasn't aware of this, by the way. Is that public comment open, kind of like this, or is it more
It
roundtable?
is.
I don't know how that works.
It is,
Yeah.
but I'm just trying, I just want to know if there
Well-
are there any, you
Right,
know,
right, right.
limitations?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
I just wanna-
it's typically open, but like here, I mean, if it's not related to the business of the Green Team or other than that, I mean,
That's where I was
the
going.
chairperson can control the meeting in the way that they see
And,
fit.
and there's
If
an agenda, right?
There's an
So
agenda.
Yes.
if this person's speaking outside of agenda items, it can be respectfully
Yeah,
requested that he stop
it can be
commenting. on-
limited to the amount
Right.
of time and things like that. So there are steps that the chairperson can take, and if they want to get in touch, I'll work through them with
I
them.
don't think he was successful, believe me.
All right,
may I add to that?
please, 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 please.
You know, I got to stress that, Mayor, you went for us a couple weeks ago to the SWAC meeting, and you requested this traffic study. That's completed. We've written a letter together requesting this traffic study. Looks like we don't have any friends, so we need to do our own study.
So then I'll say, I would request that members of this council join me in moving forward to approve a traffic study.
Has this been discussed at all? This is,
No, we're just having the discussion now.
The gentleman at the meeting said that I thought I heard him say the traffic study was done, and he was waiting to obtain
Correct.
it.
It's done.
Yeah, but
The
we
mayor
haven't
asked for
seen
it.
it.
is
I
the
asked
Letter,
for it, and
our
I was-
letter requested.
No, I asked for it back in
Yeah.
January when we went to the meeting.
when are the findings going to be put out from that traffic study?
Never.
Actually, I asked for it last year
I don't know
in
at this
November.
point. I'd heard the same thing, that the study was complete, but it had not yet been released to the public, and I haven't heard when the release
Yeah,
date
I'd
might
like to
be.
know what it says before we spend money on it, you know.
I like to go on the offensive. I don't think, if we're asking for things and we're not getting them, let's do our own.
I'd
Could we
like
get a
both.
cost analysis on the traffic study?
Sure.
And in the interim, can we at least send another letter as the manager? Send a letter requesting this from either the freeholders, the SWAC, DEP, whoever is in possession of this finalized letter.
I mean, that's like the sunshine, right? It's study's done, we should have it, right?
Unless it's consultative, deliberative, or
We should have it, yeah.
advisory material. At the same time, I'll get pricing for us to do our own at the same time.
The other thing, I just wanted Councilwoman to ask you, Councilwoman O'Donnell,
Yes.
have you set up any meetings with Mr. Gahegan about the shade tree?
I have not. Matter of fact, that was one of the things I wanted to ask him, if in fact the shade tree has set up a 3 or 5 year plan yet.
Well, we were looking to set up a meeting because you had said that you were working with the manager to look at all the trees that you wanted taken down without the shade tree being there. So my question is, have you set up a meeting with you and Brian, including members of the shade tree, so that they can be in on that discussion?
Do you have anything available in the next 5 to 7 days, manager?
No, I do. Mayor, my attendance was very limited over the last 2 weeks. I was away for a week, and then last week I was only here very briefly due to personal obligations, so, but I will get that scheduled right away with her.
Please connect with Crystal
Yes.
Diaz. Thank you. The last thing that I wanted to say was about the budget. So there were 3 members here, yourself and Councilwoman Richmond was not here.
Correct.
The departments that provided information and presented us with their PowerPoints did a very wonderful job. I really hope that you and Councilwoman
I did.
will review.
I did.
Excellent, thank you.
The day after. And also, I'd been in touch with the manager prior to that, going over some budget issues, which I think are pretty well displayed in the paper that he
Oh, I have
he
questions
gave
about
us
that.
this evening.
Okay,
May I?
yes, please.
Mr. Geegan, what's the status of the energy saving program that the school has implemented that I've been asking that we look at? So possibly, I mean, we certainly have a lot of buildings, so I'm hoping that, I know Mr. Sanisak was going to meet with you. Has that taken place yet?
No, it hasn't. Between my schedule the last 2 weeks and the schools being tied up with their move into the building, their business offices are now operating out of this office, this building, as of last week. So they've been tied up, and then they're going to be moving their administrative offices within the next few weeks. I do have a meeting with Mr. Sanisak tomorrow morning, though. I'll
Yeah, because
inquire
I've been
about that.
asking for this for about a year now, and, yeah, I'm sure Mr. Sanisak is happy to give us the information, but in the meantime, I feel that, we're not moving forward on this energy savings that we might be able to take advantage of. So as fast as you could put something together and share with us, I'd certainly appreciate it.
Oh, just briefly, I want to thank the Cub Scouts who reached out to me and voiced their opposition to the transfer station, actually. They got a bunch of emails, and a couple of our younger scouts, as a part of their, I guess it would be like one of the badges, is required to do a community, or comment on a community issue. And a lot of them chose this, and I thank them for their interest in government and community affairs, current events, and it was awesome to see. So thank you if you're watching.
Excellent job. Okay, are we ready? I would like to open this section of the meeting for hearing of public citizens. Jerry Dixell? I would like to state for the record, you do not have to announce your address, but please do announce your name.
Jerry Dixell. I like to give my time to my wife.
Okay?
Mayor, I'm bringing my outlight, Barbara Dixels, 62A Piazza Vittoria, Freehold, New Jersey. I'm bringing my own outlights because there is no overhead light here. So I'm going to request this council go out and buy 2 banker's lights, one here and one there. So when anybody comes up to testify, whether it's lawyers or plats, please have enough light up here so that people can see without going blind.
Okay.
That's a very constructive, a nice, and they come different sizes, a nice banker's light,
Thank you for the recommendation. I'll talk to the manager about it.
please. Badly needed. My eyesight is not what you call wonderful. To the mayor and council from Barbara Dixell. I was not here last council meeting because the village's board of trustees and the management company called a special residents meeting. There were more than 100 village's residents at the meeting in the village's clubhouse. My first elected obligation as the county committee woman from the villages is to be there. On Wednesday morning, Jerry and I delivered papers to Joe Clark, Howell Township attorney. All right. When a person runs for elected office and wins, he or she takes the oath of office to swear and protect the Constitution of the United States and the state Constitution of the state of New Jersey, and to bear truth, faith, and allegiance to the same, so help me God. The elected council in 2017 was Robert Nicastro, Deputy Mayor, Pauline Smith, Councilwoman, Evelyn O'Donnell, Councilwoman, Robert Walsh, Councilman. The Mayor of Howell was Teresa Berger. An application was filed for a solid waste transfer station in Ramtown that would bring 500 vehicles in and out daily each way. The owners of the property are the French family. There was a lot of opposition to it from Howell residents. Unknown to the public and without council vote, the council members with closed doors sent letters to Stuart Newman, the solid waste coordinator, on March 6, 2017, and again on May 16, 2017, giving their approval for the solid waste transfer station to be built in Howell, providing all instructions were met. SWAC held a public meeting in Howell, and the SWAC person said, "This has nothing to do with you. It is out of your hands because your council voted for it." There were 200 angry Howell residents at this meeting. It is my opinion that the council members gave their approval under questionable conditions. I will read the letters that were approved by the council members and then given to Jeffrey Mayfield, Township Manager, to sign and send to SWAC. The Castro and Walsh told the SWAC meeting they were against the solid waste transfer station coming to Howell. Too late. Mayor Berger was against it from the start. Since she was out of the country at this time, her son came to the SWAC meeting and read her letter into the record. On February 21st, 2018, a letter was written to the county freeholders and signed by the same council members and the mayor, saying they are against the solid waste transfer station coming to Howell. The SWAC person said that the county has to make the decision, yes or no. Okay, letters. March. I'll do the March letter first. March 5th, 2017, Attention Stuart Newman, solid waste coordinator, proposed solid waste transfer station. Dear Mr. Newman, as you know, Howell Township has had several communications with you regarding the proposed solid waste transfer station on Randolph Road. According to the records, you have received a list of attached requirements from community development, a land use, a fire department, a planning board, engineer, and outside professionals. Howell Township will offer its support for this program as long as the recommendations and requirements submitted to you by such of the three professionals, both in-house and outsourced, are complied with.
Excuse me, Mayor, it's 5 minutes.
I'm sorry, Mrs.
That's okay, Barbara. Please
Tina
con-
Smiley can
Barbara.
get up here for 25
Barbara.
minutes so I can finish.
Please continue.
This one particular letter from the township is very just blurred, so I'm doing my best. This includes Randolph Road along the property frontage and engineering configuration that Randolph Road can support the weight of the proposed vehicles that will utilize this facility. We trust that these issues, along with everything else raised by our professionals, will be addressed should the application be approved. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Jeffrey Mayfield, Township Manager, on behalf of the Howell Township governing body and professional staff. May 16th, 2017. Attention Stuart Newman, Solid Waste Coordinator. Proposed solid waste transfer station. Dear Mr. Newman, after consultation and review of the provisions in the plan for the solid waste transfer station mentioned above, Howell Township has no objection to this project moving forward as designed currently. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact us. Sincerely, Jeffrey Mayfield, Township Manager. This is the letter from Mayor Berger that was read into the record by her son at the SWAC meeting. And I have to tell you, that guy from SWAC was obnoxious. When anybody else was here, he had 200 people, but boy, was he obnoxious. The first sentence out of his mouth, and not even hello, how are you? It's, you have nothing to do with this. Your council voted for you, you're out of it. So that was the first thing out of the guy's mouth. The mayor, like I said, I'm writing to have my comments become a part of the record at the public hearing taking place at the Monmouth County Hall of Records to address the construction of the new waste processing facility on Randolph Road. As I am unable to attend, I have asked my comments to be read into the record by a Howell Township resident on my behalf so that my position is clear. As I understand it, the purpose of the hearing is to listen to any comments or concerns that any members, any residents might have regarding the facility or how the proposed amendment might affect them. As a resident of Howell Township and as the mayor, I am writing this today to voice my complete disapproval of the proposed amendment to the solid waste management plan, and to make my voice known that I am against having this waste processing facility in our town. I'm not going to read the whole rest of it, 3 more paragraphs. That's just one. February 21st, 2018, also Howell Township. And this is being sent to the freeholders from the governing body. And I'm going to just read the first paragraph. Please allow this letter to serve as formal notice of the concerns, comments, and objections of the Howell Township Council regarding the above reference application. Resource Engineering LLC currently possesses a Class B recycling license and operates as 220-ton facility at 34 Randolph Road, Howell. It collects what appears to be type 23 waste tree stumps, untreated wood and brush, and then processes it into topsoil and mulch. It now seeks to expand to its operations to include new types of material, including 1,500 tons of type 13 bulky waste appliances and furniture, plus type 13C construction and demolition debris. As you are undoubtedly aware, numerous residents attended a recent township meeting and a meeting of the Solid Waste Transfer Advisory Council to voice their opposition to this application. Contents included the lack of notice and public participation, physical disturbance to the environmentally sensitive site as a result of proposed construction, vastly interceded, this is also not clear, truck traffic, and the unintentional inclusion of potentially unauthorized types of solid and hazardous waste.
Barbara?
I'm done.
I'm sorry, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
You are reading those into the record?
Yeah, this is township.
So are you going to give a copy to Joe?
Yes.
Okay.
He saw it. He saw it when he saw it when I went up to visit him.
Do you have many more documents to read?
No, I don't. But I have to tell you that I am absolutely appalled that, unknown to the public and in closed doors, this was approved by the last council members. So when SWAC got it, when we went to the SWAC meeting, SWAC said, your council approved it. It never came to a council vote. It never came to a public meeting. So we're stuck. Our last members of the last council stuck it to us. So now what do we do?
Well, just for true transparency, I was in favor.
You weren't in favor.
Just for
I
transparency.
said that from the start.
Well,
You
I
were-
was previous council, so I just wanted to.
I said that in my letter, you were opposed to it.
Yes, you did, ma'am. Yes, you did.
I'm going to tell you what I think I want to do.
Okay.
I think this absolutely deserves a full state and federal and FBI investigation. And I just might send them the documents. Something was done here that should never have been done. Maybe done for political reasons. There is a family in town that owns the property. And I don't know what's going on. But this needs to be fully investigated because this SWAC manager said in no uncertain terms, in plain, simple English, you're out of the picture, your council voted for it, you have nothing to do with this.
Well, as a citizen, if you want to take those actions, you can absolutely do that.
I mean, I am appalled, and I am appalled for the township of Howell and the residents in Ramtown who are going to have poisoned water, poisoned air, poisoned environment. Their kids are going to have to dodge 500 cars and trucks each way, each day. Your roads cannot handle the weight of the vehicles that are going to transport this, whatever they're going to bring in and out of here. Your roads can't. We are a country town. Nobody gets it. We're not, and I'm not insulting anybody. We are not a white-collar business town. We're a blue-collar farm community, and have been for many years. And it's fine. Let to remain that way, without being attacked by who knows what this thing is going to be. But this was done, I guess, without, this never came to a council vote, did it? Did it
At
never
this
come?
dais? No.
No, at this dais. So it was never brought to the public. It never became a member of the agenda. It never became part of a council vote. But yes, members of the Howell Council evidently approved this. I find it very appalling, and I'm very upset. And I'm upset for Howell. I'm upset for what it's going to do to us, our environment, and the poor people in Ramtown. They don't deserve this.
I appreciate your concerns.
But because this family owns the property, and I guess for whatever reason, they are political compadres, or whatever you want to call
Well-
it. And I don't know, I'm not happy, and like I said, I have, things have a way of showing up in my house. But these are official township documents, and I read them into the record. And this council should be appalled. Truly.
Mrs. Dixell,
Yeah.
I guess 20 minutes ago, I brought up that this council is not done with it. We want to bring forward our own traffic study. We don't agree with, SWAC. And we asked for the traffic study from the county with no luck. So this township is not, this council is not giving up. We're not giving up.
Listen,
And there's other remedies, there's other things we could do.
the freeholders also are aware that
And I'm also,
the French family owns the property, and part of the French family is the former Monmouth County clerk. And
And-
everybody worked together for a million years.
and to top it off, I also know that there's a need study that shows that there's not a need for another waste transfer station in the county.
We
So,
don't need this at all.
Correct.
And this was done not because out of need. It was never brought to a council meeting. It was never brought to the public.
You don't have to yell. No
And
yelling.
I just,
Yeah, but you don't have to.
Okay.
I don't want to be disrespectful at this point.
I'm sorry.
But
It never-
Barbara, please, if I may. you're up here 20 minutes, and there are a lot of
That's
other
fine.
people in the audience, and
I
I don't want to be
totally appreciate
disrespectful to you, and I totally appreciate what you're saying, but I do need to also appreciate other people who are here.
You're absolutely correct, and I thank you very much.
And we're not done. We're not done.
I think that the state and the federal government need to come into Howell and investigate what happened, how it happened, who made it happen, and make it go away, because this can't come.
I agree.
And like I said, I didn't make
Barbara,
this, I'm leaving.
thank you.
I didn't make this up. I'm reading official.
I know,
document.
and I, again, I don't mean, I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but there are other members here that
And
want to speak
please,
as well.
Next time, please have a banker's light on these tables, so even lawyers and with their platforms.
Don't know if it's going to be necessarily next time, but we'll work on it, I promise.
Thank you.
I won't make you call.
Tina?
Ms. Smilik, thank you very much for not making us say our addresses. It makes a big difference. I just want to know, will you be updating the ordinance to reflect this change?
I think Joe is still working on the wording of all of that, right?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So we're going to update ordinance. I'm going to start off R2130, RA-12, the lien interest payment for $16,000. 16,000, that's a lot of money. How long were we holding that?
Approximately 2 years. It was one of the errors identified by the previous tax collector, an issue uncovered by the current one, and we're trying to make it right.
Okay, so that's 16,000 for 2 years. Unbelievable. Not here, of course, but, okay, on the last page, we're talking about municipal budget. You have resolution R-20- and nothing else. Is this a resolution? Is this an ordinance? Is this?
Normally, it's a motion and a second and a roll call vote, but to have a placeholder on the agenda for it, that's how the clerk and I decided to mark it on the agenda.
I'll tell you after the meeting.
But so it's not a resolution? They don't have to, it's,
There's actually a sheet in this state document that it's call it a resolution, but it's a sheet where it states, the appropriations, the anticipated revenue, anticipated taxation, and shows the roll call vote of the introduction should it be introduced. So in order to have a placeholder on the agenda for that, this is how the clerk and I decided to reflect it on the agenda.
okay, so it's not going to be a resolution or an ordinance?
Correct.
Okay. So, and then, once they approve this tonight, then the introductory budget will go onto the website?
Correct. I'm still in the process of, as far as the formal state form, the state had just issued the worksheet, the Excel worksheet that was distributed to them only on the 27th, and they actually revised it yesterday. So as far as, I have 3 days after introduction to provide it to local government services. So I would say by the end of the week, the official state form of the budget will be posted to the website.
Okay. And then, so my understanding is, because I talked to you before, just confirming, we're a little bit over 800,000 up on our budget, but our tax rate is going to stay the same at 3.9.
Manager Gagan will address that in his presentation.
I have a presentation
Oh,
that we're
okay.
given.
Well, since we're talking about that, are you going to do a state of a town? We're still waiting for that. Like, do we have a date for that?
I outline all the financial situation of the township every year as a public presentation.
Yeah, but I
I
had,
understand you don't agree with what I present, but I outline the financial condition. I also report to the governing body monthly in a comprehensive report.
okay, that's just not how our ordinance reads, but it can go someplace else. All right. What's going on with our road paving?
At this point, it's a personnel matter that's being looked into, so it's being put on hold until that's resolved.
Okay, do you know if Hilltop Road is on a part of this project?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. West Farms, Walter Group, they're getting to the point where they're getting very far. So how do residents sign up for this?
We're actually going to be having a public session coming up shortly. If you hold on a second, I can get the info. It's going to be April 1st here,
April 1st?
yes,
And then
here in the meeting room.
during that time, it was before you, I know, but we discussed veterans' preference for the first 90 days. Is that still?
I'm not aware of that. I
Yeah,
would have to
that
check.
came about, the first 90 days, veterans would have preference.
All right, I'll check with CGP&H.
All right.
Oversees
And
the
then-
program.
That gave us, it's good for the development itself.
Yeah. So I remember getting up here and everybody agreed to it and said that they would do veterans' preference for the first 90 days. Want to make sure that happens. Sandy funds, people who are still, they also get the first 90 days. And then they were wrong about Howell getting first 90 days. We can't give residents a preference, right?
Correct.
Okay. So
God bless you.
I just want to make sure that's all included before we move too far on that one. Update on Freewood Acres, do we have any update?
I know there has been some issues recently with the pipe work that's been done, and they've had to redo some of it or are currently in the process, so that's caused a significant delay.
And we have to wait about 6 months. Once they finish all this, yet they still have to wait about 6 months before they go through and pave the road.
Repave, yes.
Repave. All right. So issues, do you have approximate how long?
I do not.
All right, so we don't know what the setback is. Okay, and Soldier Memorial update, do we have an update on that?
No, I'm waiting to hear back from the county if they'll approve the modified grant application.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Parisi?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Mark Parisi.
Good evening.
Hey. So as you all know, I'm the representative on the Freehold Regional Board of Education. I just wanted to give some updates. Since the last time I was here, we talked about the S2 resolution that council had passed. Last Tuesday, Governor Murphy gave his budget address, and then on Thursday, they released their state aid numbers for FY21, and Freehold Regional High School District is going to be losing approximately $5.7 million. That's roughly the exposure that we had anticipated on the low end of the exposure. What I wanted to just address to the public is that the high school district covers a very large geographical area, and that area extends into our legislative districts of 11, 12, and 30th. I wanted to recognize and thank the representatives from the 12th legislative district, namely Senator Gopal and Assemblyman Hotowling and Assemblywoman Downey, for putting together the Support Our Schools campaign, which is advocating for additional state aid for our schools. And again, they're from Legislative District 12, which is the northern end of the regional school district. So part of their campaign is that they're asking for an additional $200 million in extraordinary special education aid to meet the obligations of our special ed. Because any funding over 40% is considered extraordinary, and the state said that they would pick up that part of it. So if that was fully funded, that would be a huge chunk of change that would offset the state aid cuts. They also requested an additional $200 million in transitional aid, of which Governor Murphy did pledge $50 million for this transitional aid for districts that are facing program cuts to help offset and mitigate that. We don't know how that $50 million is going to be distributed throughout all of the 190 plus districts that are losing money under S2, but we we may realize some of that $50 million. And then one of the important things that I think that Governor Murphy stressed during his budget address, whether you agree with his politics or not, the reality is that our school funding really comes from three sources. Obviously, number one is property taxes. Number two is state aid, and number three is federal funding. Federal funding is a very small portion of it. The bulk is property taxes and state aid. So if you really look at it like on a scale, the more state aid you get, the lower your property taxes are. So state aid for our schools does equate to lowering property taxes, and that's fairly undeniable. But right now we need to get new sources of funding for our state aid. That's all I have to say about the school stuff. Number two, after listening to Barbara talk about the traffic study and everything, it's a little alarming to me that there wasn't a public hearing and a resolution passed regarding council support for the transfer station at that time. That it was kind of like done not in a public hearing setting where public would have an opportunity to discuss in the issues that they have with the transfer station. Again, that really maybe wasn't this particular council, but just the fact that it happened is concerning. And I was at the most recent SWAC meeting with Mayor Berger, and what I recall them saying is that they had received a draft of the study, that it wasn't finalized. And I happen to be aware that a resident has Oprah'd that draft of that traffic study that the county paid for, and that county council, Mr. Fitzgerald, responded to the Oprah request and said that the report was not finalized, therefore they had no documents responsive to the request, and that it will be provided upon completion. So for me, it's almost like the county paid for a study, they're getting a chance to review the study privately to make sure that it meets whatever parameters or assumptions that they are looking for, and that a reasonably informed person or concerned person could sit there and say, well, does this mean that they're going to have an opportunity to request whoever conducted the study to make revisions that are going to make the study conform to whatever they want it to look like?
Well, you would hope that
You'd
they
hope-
would share it and meet with Township to try and work on it collectively, right?
Well, without seeing the draft and the final, you don't know what
Right,
revisions
agreed.
may or may not have
Absolutely.
taken place
Absolutely.
through that process. And we would hope that our partners up in Freehold would be looking out for our best interests. But at the end of the day, we're responsible to look out for our best interests. And I would fully support the town appropriating the funds to get our own study done, just to make sure that we have something in hand when the time comes. The last thing that I wanted to address, and I thank you for your time, is that last week I emailed a proposed ordinance for the council to put on their own initiative a question on the November ballot to change our form of government from partisan to nonpartisan elections. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to read it or not. I said that I'd be here to answer any questions if you had them. I just had a couple statistics, and then I'm done. Many people may not know that our form of government is the council manager plan of government under the Faulkner Act, and part of that plan allows us the initiative and referendum process. And 42 municipalities in New Jersey have this plan of government. 16 of the 42 are nonpartisan. In Monmouth County alone, 12 municipalities are nonpartisan. In Howell, the most recent registered voter tallies are 46% of Howell registered voters are unaffiliated, 29% are Republican, and 23% are Democratic. So a majority of the voters in Howell are unaffiliated. And before the New Year's, there was a poll done on Howell happenings. I know this is not a scientific study, it's Howell happenings, I get that, okay? But it's a pretty good indicator of like the pulse of the community. I mean, I think many of us follow it and maybe peruse it and read some of the stuff that's on it. And at that time, there was over 300 people that there was a poll whether or not we should be nonpartisan or not. And 4 out of every 5 people supported being nonpartisan. And I thought that was a compelling number. So that's why I proposed this ordinance. I know you guys are in your budget season, you got a lot to think about. Maybe it's something you don't want to deal with right now. Maybe in a few weeks or a few months, it's something you guys will have some conversation about. You all know how to get in touch with me if you want to talk about it. But I think it's something worth considering. And that's all I have tonight. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, Barbara.
What does this man mean by, please explain what nonpartisan means? And I've never heard this conversation about all of a sudden somebody concocted something, and I never heard of this.
So I'm going to repeat it, right? Barbara Dixell is asking, what does it mean to go nonpartisan, correct? Is that the question?
Yes.
Okay, that's for you.
Would you like me to answer that question?
Yes, it was
Okay.
directed to you.
Okay. So in our form of government, you can have partisan elections where the candidates have to run in a primary and they would appear on the ballot under either the Democratic ticket or the Republican ticket. And then in a nonpartisan election, anybody that's running for town council would appear on the right hand of the ballot, not affiliated with the Democrats or Republicans. So basically, in theory, everyone would be running as an independent or nonpartisan. However, it's not uncommon that, you know, when candidates run for any election, that they may receive endorsements from any number of community groups, whether that may be a political group or otherwise. So it's not saying that having a nonpartisan election means that there won't be any political influence. It just means that the candidates themselves will appear on the ballot as if they're unaffiliated or not affiliated with any major political party. Council, did I do a good job explaining that? Okay. Okay. Does that answer your question?
No, and what kind of power or authority do you have to concoct this thing to go ask a township to go change their form of government? And who are you anyway?
Barbara, we can talk privately alone. We're not.
This is a public meeting, and you're coming in.
Yeah, but this is the council's meeting. This isn't our
Well-
discussion.
I want to know, and I'm sure the rest of the people want to know also. So I want to know.
So
exactly-
I don't want you to yell. I don't want you to yell. But I think it would be appropriate for the two of you to have the discussion.
He's coming here to try making the township change, whatever they want to, but maybe the township needs to know that.
Please.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Jerry Barron. I didn't realize the green team was going to get brought up tonight, but since it was, I thought I'd earn my pay raise I got today, this year. We did have an agenda, and we were discussing recertification, which is coming up in 14 months. And that real estate person said that he could gain us points with his transfer waste station.
Got it.
And that's how he talked.
Okay.
Just to clarify.
I appreciate that, Jerry, thank you. 'Cause I was wondering how it came about.
Well, that's how it can, and he'll be back next month, or this month, he says, with information how he can get points, which, so, can I let him talk at the next meeting, or?
Well, you're the chairperson. I would think that you would be able to run the meeting according to what you think is pertinent. So if his information would not be pertinent to the green team, then you could decline his conversation.
So if he starts talking about how great the transfer station is and how much points they would get.
I think you're on the right track.
Tell him to keep his points.
I was there. I realized, he waited to the end. It was very kind of, he just moved in. But the green team did a very nice job in explaining their stance by the questions that they asked. So it was well played, but I think that, he certainly had his own agenda.
Public relations, it's called.
Yeah, it's a good one.
One quick thing about the census, I sent Brian a nice long email today, but I'm not going to discuss all the email, but one thing that the man didn't bring up was that you can change your count that you do on April 1st, because if you have a baby on May 1st, you can go back and change your count and add that baby in. Just a little, I took a course last night. It's the same with Jersey had one, so. And I have to say, my notes were pretty good, I think. They agreed with what the person said, so yeah. I just wanted to bring you up to date. You can change it, though. You didn't mention that, but yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Jerry. Is there anyone else that wants to come up?
Kathy Novak, Howell. I was also at the Green Team meeting, and one of the things that I found very disturbing about this person that came, he introduced himself, he signed his name, and he said he was there representing resource engineering. And so I asked him, well, what was his title? And he said he was a principal. And at no time did he state that he was a realtor. And I went home and Googled it. I Googled his name, and that's how I found out he was a realtor. So I thought he was someone who is part of resource engineering. So he didn't represent himself. Honestly, is the way I felt.
Wasn't transparent.
Right. So, yeah, that's the word. And I just want to say about the waste transfer station. It's so disturbing that Monmouth County paid $30,000 for a traffic study, and they're not releasing the results. And now we have to go and get our own traffic study. And it just seems that our government can do better, our county government, and it's really disturbing to me that this is going on since 2015, and we're still talking about the waste transfer station. And I hope it ends soon. That's all.
Me too. Is there anyone else?
Hi, Crystal Dias Howell. I just wanted to clarify, so I just advised council that there is a document that's posted on our website. It's called the Community Forestry Management Plan. It was written in 2017. That document is good for 4 years. So it's a plan on what we are doing as far as our community forestry management. That is something that I know Deputy Mayor has been talking about, meeting with Mr. Geekum about. However, there's a plan already in place. And not only that, but in 2020, which is this year, we are recreating that document to go from 2021 to 2025, because that's why the shade tree is there, to do something such as this. If you would be willing to come to our meeting when we're making that planning, that would actually probably make a better use of time, unless you want a separate meeting for that, because I'd be willing to meet with you. It's just that that's what the shade tree is doing currently. So I wasn't sure how you'd want to go about doing that. But it is actually on the website, so if you want to take a look at that and see where we are in it, that's fine.
My concern was for a 3 or 5 year plan.
Well, it's a 4-year plan that's on there.
That could be in place with the monies from the shade tree to continually, take care of dangerous trees.
Well, we have to be careful also that we're not just taking away the trees, that
No,
we're
that's
also
not what
planting the trees.
That's not what I said. There's a difference between taking away a tree and trimming it and removing trees that are dangerous. So, and that was my concern, which I know Councilman Bonovich had read A and B of what was one of the responsibilities of shade tree, but C is dangerous trees.
Right, and that's also in the Community Forestry Management Plan.
So.
It's a big part of it.
Part of the, well, then I'll have to extrapolate that, because part of that plan, I would hope, would be monies allocated on a 3 or 5 year basis, to keep going out and monitoring the trees and, removing some of them, especially the ones that are so close to the road.
That is indicated in the plan. Also, there is a grant that is available to help the township pay for revising that, it's called this CFMP. And that, we're in the process of getting all that information, that way we can present it to the council, so we can ask for your approval of that, so we can go forward to getting that grant.
Well, since Deputy Mayor is by herself on the only council member, I would like to join you and the Deputy Mayor for these meetings.
Well, maybe it's more prudent than if we have one meeting, Ms. Diaz, the mayor, myself, and the manager have a meeting prior, so we can actually focus. And I don't want to, take away from shade tree meetings in itself, and get the blueprint of, where it's at, and then, what the future holds.
Then I would recommend also including the certified tree expert as well.
Sure, if we can get Sherry there at the same time, that'd be great. Her schedule, whatever that would permit, because she's always at the planning board meetings, obviously. So.
Okay, that's pretty much all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come up? At this time, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting. Consent agenda.
I'd like to move 9A1 through 9A12, including motions 9B1 through 9B4.
I'd like to add, Councilman.
I'll second.
I'd like to add real quick, 9B5 would be Kathy Novak, and 9B6, John Leggio would bump up from an alternate to a full-time unexpired term, Class 4.
Just point of information, 9B6 accepting the resignation of Paul Schneider, and which we would have to do obviously before we moved up Mr. Leggio, but I would say at this time that Paul Schneider has been an intricate part of the community, giving a lot of his time, on different committees, and many, many years, decades of years of service. So I thank him publicly. And I will redo my second, including the appointments that you made along with Mr. Schneider's resignation.
Okay, so I believe we need to do 9B5 and 6 separately.
That's what I was
Correct.
going for.
Got it.
Okay. So this is for 9A1 through 9A12 and 9B1, I'm sorry, through
9B4.
9B4.
And then we'll do 9B5 and 9B6 because they're appointments separate.
And I would second that.
Okay, roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion to appoint to the Municipal Green Team a one-year unexpired term, Kathy Novak.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
I'd accept the resignation of Planning Board member Paul Schneider, and I would appoint Class 4 member John Leggio, who is presently an alternate, to the position of full member.
I'll second that.
Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes. At this point, I would like to open public hearings for the ordinances. Is there anyone that would like to come up?
There's none. It's only intro.
I know, but it's there, and I'm going to say it. I'll close this section. Introduction of ordinances.
Motion to introduce ordinance number 0-20-5 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in the 3/6/2020 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with notice of its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it will be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township Council to be held on 3/24/2020 at 7:30 PM prevailing time in the municipal building.
Second.
Title of ordinance, an ordinance amending Chapter 139, Fees, Article 17, Land Use, Section 55, Annual Landlord Registration and Registration for Abandoned Residential Property of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Howell. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Okay, I would make a motion to accept the municipal budget appropriation, the limits, and establish a cap bank. Which ordinance,
0-20-6.
0-20-6. Motion to introduce ordinance 026 on first reading by title and to order the same to be published in the March 6th, 2020 issue of the Asbury Park Press, together with its notice and its introduction and passage on first reading by title, and that it be further considered for final passage after public hearing at a meeting of the Township to be held on April 7th, 2020 at 7:30 prevailing time in the municipal building.
Second?
I'll second.
Title of ordinance, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank, NJSA 40A:4-45.14. Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Mayor, I have a brief presentation with
Yeah.
regard to the budget introduction, if I may.
Please, continue.
Okay. As starting point for the budget, just to advise where we've gotten to this point, the departments submit their budgets going back to October and November of last year. That's when the review starts. We hold public hearings, managers' hearings in late November. Some cuts start at that point, and they continue throughout the process. In addition, there's a review of all the documentation. Usually require the department heads to provide substantial information about their requests, whether it's personnel or various equipment, that kind of thing. There's several follow-up meetings with various department heads as well as governing body members that have requested additional information in meetings. And then finally, most recently, we had a public budget hearing with the governing body who requested to meet with certain department heads. So we had police, DPW, and community development come in to discuss their budgets. In order to show where we're at for our budget this year, we have to review where we're at for 2019. As you can see, the various numbers, we met or exceeded everything that we had anticipated for 2019. Surplus, we had used $6 million. The miscellaneous revenues, we had an increase of almost $1.3 million. State aid was flat, as expected. And all other categories, as you can see, we had an increase through. To review our surplus fund, last year when we were doing our budget, we were at $10.1 million, of which we used $6 million for the 2019 budget, leaving a balance of 4.1. Throughout the year, we were able to regenerate through our operations $6.6 million, so we outperformed the previous year. Large part of that was the property sale that we had, the Board of Ed building, that was $1.495 million. The rest of that's comprised through various fees that we charge throughout the year. There's road opening permits, things like that. So we ended the year for our surplus at $10.8 million. I am proposing we use the same $6 million for the 2020 budget. Just as a quick side note, this ending balance for 12/31 of 2019 is the largest surplus that we've ended. As far back as we've been able to find, our CFO has been here for 13 years. He's indicated it's the highest he's seen during his tenure here.
So then, in the budget itself, why did it not go up? So our anticipated income in this year was not increased. It was put back, I believe, to what it was for 19.
Yes, I'm proposing we use $6 million again. The reason for that is to keep a conservative approach because...
I'm talking about on the revenue side. So on the revenue side, it looked as if we did not account for the additional dollars that we received in 2020 or 2019 to increase. I think we took it down too much.
That $10.8 million is the total revenue that we brought in.
You keep going.
Okay. So anyway, I'm proposing a conservative approach of using $6 million in the event that we don't regenerate the same amount of money in future years. I don't want to leave us short for subsequent budgets. To review our tax collections, our year ended at a 98.6% collection rate. Again, that exceeded our expected performances. We had anticipated for 2019 98.2% collection rate. For 2020, we're budgeting for a 98.23% collection rate.
This was my question, forgive me.
Sure.
So under fees and permits, so anticipated revenue, that goes into the surplus, right?
Yes.
Like the revenues. So here we have in we anticipated 600,000, but we realized $1 million. And then here for 2020, we're only anticipating 650,000. So could we please explain why we wouldn't anticipate a little bit more since we, both years in a row, had received more than what we anticipated?
There was specific reasons why it was very high this past year. We had a lot of road opening permits from New Jersey American Water for all the work that they're doing. That was a large part of that. I can't guarantee that that's going to continue throughout 2020. I mean, they are still doing work, but I don't know if it's going to be to that extent. So,
Okay.
okay. Okay, so going over our, oops, I missed a slide. Our ratables, regarding the total assessment of the town, we've had an increase in assessed value of over $207 million.
Would you repeat that
Yes.
figure?
Can you go back, Brian? I'm sorry.
Sure. Our 2019 ratables were $7,195,667,500. And prior to certification of the ratables, we had an increase of $207,277,600, or an increase of 2.8%. That's the total assessed value. So our total budget for 2019 was just over $52 million. We expended just under $51 million. That difference generally accounts for either projects that department heads did not get to, changes in staffing, streamlining expenses, shopping for best pricing, that kind of thing.
Staffing.
Yes.
So last week, when I looked at the budget that was given to me, there were full-time and part-time employees, right? So the part-time employees were bumped up to full-time employees, which increased the amount of money in the budget that we were going to be expending. The medical expenses, though, were not increased, which I questioned. You actually decreased, which did not make sense to me. But now this budget that I received, all of those part-time that became full-time now are back to part-time. So was that seemed to make the budget look different, as well as on the police budget. When we first looked at it, all of the retirees were on that budget, but then on the document that you gave us here, you took the retirees out and decreased that amount from the budget. So it kind of looked as if you had left it in and then took it out. Like,
Well,
why
first
would you
regarding the EMTs, as part of my budget, I'm proposing 4 full-time EMTs. The salaries that are proposed, it's almost the equivalent of what we'd be paying in part-time. So the salary line isn't going to change very much.
well, it was
How-
what was presented on here. It went from part-time, then it went to full-time, and then this new one went back to part-time employees. I was just
Okay.
questioning.
All right, I believe I understand what you're getting at. There was a request for 10 full-time EMTs. So what happens is when we compile everything.
It wasn't only in the EMT department, though.
I'm trying to
was in all departments.
use an example.
Oh, okay,
The first
sorry.
budget that you
Sorry.
get includes all requests by department heads. So if the police department requests 8 patrolmen, EMS is requesting 10 EMTs, you're seeing that total amount in the initial paperwork that you get. And then that's when all the cuts start happening. Does that explain it?
It does, but if you had that update last week, why wouldn't it have been an updated document that we could review? You made the changes after we met, but you knew that you were going to change that before we got there?
This is constant work in progress. There's, like, even today, I'm working on the budget. But now I'm to the point, it's, I can't make changes. I'm introducing this to you. I'm not sure what you're questioning.
Continue.
Okay. So that's the difference between our final approved budget for 2019 and how much we actually expended. It's a difference of just over $1 million. So the introduction of the 2020 budget, it's one of the most important aspects of my job, the CFO's job, and the council's contemplation and hopeful approval of. This goes over how we calculate the tax rate. It's total cost for all services, less any offsetting revenues, such as grants, user fees, money borrowed, money transferred from reserves, to arrive at the amount to be raised by taxation. This amount's divided by the total assessment of the municipality that I had gone over earlier.
Could you explain why, Chief Kudrick came up and he asked for, replacement, 2-for-1 replacement for some of his retirees that are occurring.
Yes.
Could you tell me why you did not agree? I mean, you didn't do it, so I'd like to know why you don't agree with it.
Well, actually, the chief gave conflicting statements. He said he wanted 2-for-1 replacements, and he also asked for 8 officers. He's indicated that 2 officers are retiring this year. My recommendation is to replace the 2 and add 2 additional. So that is a 2-for-1 replacement. My recommendation to the governing body is to not guarantee a 2-for-1 replacement because there's always an unknown of how many officers could retire. So that leaves an unknown value for you guys that you're committing to. My recommendation would be to grow the police department by a set number each year. For example, 2 officers. So in essence, you would be replacing all retirees on a 1-for-1 plus adding whatever that number the governing body decides. But in this particular budget, he's indicated he has 2 retirements this year. My introduction includes replacing those 2 and adding 2. So
It's just that when I'm looking at this, the itemized breakdown, it's not reflected that way. Like, it's hard for me to see that it's a 2-for-1 when I look at it this way.
It's 4 hires with a net of 2, correct?
correct.
So it's not it's 2-for-1, it's 1-for-1.
In this case, it works out 2-for-1 because there are 2 retirements. However, if something should happen that there's a mass exodus of retirements and the governing body has assured him a 2-for-1 replacement, that could be a potential budget nightmare.
Well, you could cap it,
Good. That's
2-for-1.
a policy decision for you guys to
Up
make.
to, I don't know, I'm making it up, but 2-for-1 up to X. What? Oh, wait, you have to come up. And I say what? Could you imagine? I'm like, what?
I remember at the budget presentation that Kudrick actually said he doesn't want to go beyond the 100. He wants to do 2-for-1 until he gets to 100.
Right.
So that was,
Yeah, the
that was his.
total number of 8.
Total number, yes. Yeah, that's what.
So as manager, did you speak to Chief Kudrick on your decisions?
No, not yet. Okay. To review the budget that's being introduced, it would be a net increase of $1.2 million. The breakdown, Mayor, that you keep referring to, that is that total number. That's just a detailed breakdown of it. We're anticipating revenues of $24 million and an amount to be raised by taxation of $29.2 million. This breakdown of the components of that increase, a large portion of it is salaries, which are contractual, whether it's cost of living adjustments or step raises, non-discretionary expenses. A large part of that is about $400,000 an increase in debt service payment. And then we're actually decreasing the discretionary spending. So, And then this is a breakdown of the actual salaries.
The grant went up by, if I saw it right, was that 400,000?
Yes, we can only include the grants that we have.
Already on the books?
Already on the books.
But so
correct.
it went up by $400,000?
Correct. We had received a DOT road grant for about $250,000, so that was a big chunk of it.
Thank you.
So this is a breakdown of the various components of the township. There is a reserve being set aside as PBA is currently out of contract, so we are budgeting a certain amount for that eventual settlement.
At that cap, 2%?
Yes. We've managed to reduce our overtime, total overtime budget throughout all lines. And then this is where the retirements are being reflected, the decrease in that number. There's also an adjustment to the part-time wages. That is because of the EMTs that we were making full-time, we're decreasing that part-time line.
I have a question, Brian.
Sure.
Can you go back one? I'm sorry. There's two amounts. The contractual increases, I see civilian and police, so partially PD. And then when you go down to the retirement, et cetera, that is also referring to police, correct? The 383?
Yes.
That is for both police and civilian. That's for all employees.
Okay. Anything else? And just to differentiate between the two top lines, contractual increases would be a cost of living adjustment, whether it's 2% a year, that kind of thing. The second one is referring to employees that are working through the steps in addition to their salary contractual increase. These are the various areas where we've seen some increases. Our liability insurance, our police and fire pension is a significant increase, as well as our debt service as mentioned.
Why is that?
What's that?
Why is that significantly increased?
It's a combination between rising salaries plus the payment that we owe them. They bill us for it. And then the reserve for uncollected taxes, which is a statutory percentage of our budget. Some of the decrease we've seen, we've managed to tighten up our budget under the Community Services Act. This is the Kelly bill. Fortunately, we've had a few good years for snow plowing, so we're not reimbursing a lot of the condo associations. We've made efforts towards reducing our utilities through different co-op purchasing. The public employees pension system has actually seen a reduction. So. Again, this is just a breakdown of what comprises that $1.2 million increase in spending. The amount to be raised by taxation is increasing by $800,000. And again, the total budget, 1.2. Just to highlight how our budget is broken down, just over half of it is from taxes. Next largest area is state aid and then surplus, to highlight the top revenue sources. Going into our debt service, this reflects, the difference between 2019 and 2020, indicating the significant increase in our payment. Our general obligation bonds are $35 million. Capital leases are just over $3 million, and the bond anticipation notes are $28 million. As you may recall, over time, we roll bond anticipation notes over into the general obligation notes, and we try and balance it out for an even payment. Just to get into how much debt we could potentially accrue, obviously not recommending it. Right now, this is how we arrive at that. They take our net debt, which is just over $71 million, and compare that to our 3-year average of equalized valuation, which is that $7 trillion number, and that's how we arrive at the 0.96% range. Our maximum borrowing capacity is up to 3.5%, so that is the potential borrowing power of the town. So just as a comparison, we're significantly lower than what we are legally able to borrow. And all this, including the hires I'm recommending for full-time EMTs, 2 additional police officers and additional replacements, arrives at a tax rate of 39.45 cents per $100 of assessed value. Just as a comparison, I highlighted this during the presentation last year, just throughout Monmouth County, where we ranked with our municipal tax rate, and we were number 19 for 2018. And then as we moved on to 2019, we remained the same. And you can see comparable towns that are above and below us as far as their municipal tax rates. So the tax rate factor is zero increase, $0 increase over the 2019 rate. And the average property assessment will see an estimated increase of approximately $34 just based on their assessment increase. Two new positions that are being added, as highlighted, and this budget keeps us compliant with both appropriations and levy caps. And then quickly to review our sewer utility. This is our 2019 anticipated versus realized. We realized just over $500,000 more than anticipated. Large part of that, differentiation in miscellaneous fees. Most of that is attributed to connection fees, interest on investments, interest on utility assessments, and interest on delinquencies. This is our adopted budget versus expenditures. We came in under budget, again, just as we did with the municipal budget. And our balances for debt service compared 2019 to 2020. As you can see, there's a slight increase there as well, not as drastic as the municipal rate. As far as the sewer budget, we have a decrease in salaries and wages. That is, we have newer employees that are lower in the step guide than we formerly had. And then we've had a decrease in our expenses just through tightening up how we operate and purchasing. So the actual proposed budget is a decrease of almost 2.5% for the sewer utility.
Just back to our budget.
Yes.
Legal fees, we had decreased legal fees.
Yes.
Do we think that that's a good idea? Just asking.
We do have legal fees set aside in reserve for some ongoing litigation that we have already. And I was analyzing what we had spent during 2019, and we used far less than what we had budgeted for. So we did decrease it slightly, but still left enough cushion, I believe. That's my recommendation. I mean, we're free to change that if you'd like. And then this comparison of the revenues and expenses, again, just for the sewer utility budget, which indicates a $7.2 million in revenues and 7.2 in expenses. As you're aware, it has to balance out. This is our utility fund surplus. Not as good of a picture as in the municipal budget, but I'm proposing to use $900,000 of this $1.6 million towards the 2020 budget. Okay. That is all I have. You have any questions?
I've been asking as we go. Thank you for the presentation, Brian. This is introduction, so is there...
There can still be modifications made to the budget should the governing body decide to.
But I'm asking, is there discussion on this? Because can somebody come up to talk about this if it's just introduction is what I'm asking?
That's-
Public hearing was on April 7th, Mayor, so if there's going to be changes made between now and then, it's probably, we can hear everything everybody has to say on April 7th.
Okay with that. Okay. All right.
I just wanted to ask a question. Mr. Geegan, what's the approximate cost per employee for health costs today?
It varies based on the plan that they select, but we actually had a decrease in our health benefits this year. And I believe the approximate cost for a full family plan is about $30,000.
Full family?
Yes.
That's high.
Thank you. Very high.
I am aware of other towns that are not in the state health benefits plan that pay significantly higher.
Really?
Yes.
So much higher than the private sector? Why is that? Just asking, I don't know the answer.
Probably the level of coverage. I mean, it is very good coverage that we have. Some of the people I know in the private sector don't get the same coverage benefits that we do. I can tell you for a fact, the town I reside in, I'm having conversations with the governing body there about what they pay for medical benefits because they're not in the state health benefits plan. And a comparable family plan, they're paying probably about $43,000 for, and they have about 500 employees.
That's insane. That's people. Some people that's their
Yeah.
salary.
Yes.
So I do not have a resolution to read.
No, there's no resolution
have
to
to.
this.
There's nothing. It's just a vote. Is that-
Correct, it's just a motion,
Okay.
a second, and a roll call vote, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
May I?
May I have
Yeah.
a motion?
Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the introduction of the 2020 municipal budget.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Anything else?
I have nothing else. Anybody have anything else?
I do have one thing. It's for you, Joe.
Oh, sure.
You probably know what it is.
Which
The
one?
last email of today, it was good news.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. So, good news, we closed on Mackenzie House, and the Heritage Society now owns it.
Yay.
Be nice to see what
I
they
am
do with it.
very, very happy, yes.
And the
great
second
email.
thing is, March 10th, 6 o'clock at the library, there's another farmer's market meeting, so.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to let you know that the next meeting is March 24th, 2020, 6:30 for executive and 7:30 for regular session. May I have a motion to end this meeting?
Motion to adjourn?
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Bonovich?
Yes.
Mr. Russo?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes. Thank you, everyone.